$2.1 trillion. Not moved, not invested, not rotated, shifted. That number is larger than the annual output of most nations on Earth. It is larger than the military budgets of every major power combined. It is larger than the GDP of entire regions that once ruled history. And it did not move because of panic. It moved because of calculation. This is not a headline event. There were no emergency meetings, no presidential addresses, no breaking news banners. That is how you know it matters. Because when capital moves loudly, it is reacting. When capital moves quietly, it is preparing. This shift was not emotional. It was not political. It was not ideological. It was structural. And what makes it dangerous is not the number itself. What makes it dangerous is who moved it. BlackRock does not speculate. BlackRock does not guess. BlackRock does not gamble on narratives. It models systems. It models stress. It models failure. And when an institution that exists to measure global stability begins repositioning trillions away from the center of the current system, it is not predicting something that might happen. It is responding to something that will. This is not about America's decline as a headline. This is about America's role as a financial anchor reaching a phase it has reached before, just not in living memory. Mainstream media framed this as diversification. Analysts called it global exposure. Politicians ignored it entirely. They always do. Because the most dangerous phase of any systemic shift is the one that looks normal. History has seen this pattern before. Not once, not twice, but every time a dominant power mistook scale for permanence. Empires do not collapse when people are afraid. They collapse when people are comfortable. They collapse when the flows change direction slowly, quietly, mathematically. And those flows have already changed. You are not early to this. You are not on time. You are late. The question is not whether the system will adjust. The question is who understands the sequence, and who will only understand it after it has already passed them. Because this shift is not a single event. It is not a decision. It is a stage in a sequence that history has repeated with disturbing precision. By the end of this report, you will understand that sequence. You will see the pattern. You will recognize the stages. And you will understand why those who fail to recognize it do not get a second chance. There are only two positions in moments like this: those who see the pattern, and those who become examples of it. History does not repeat, but the sequence remains. Every global financial order follows the same structural path. The names change. The currencies change. The flags change. The stages do not. The five-stage pattern. This report identifies 5 stages that appear in every end-of-cycle monetary system, not as theory, as record. Dominance through trust. Every system begins with trust. A dominant power provides stability, liquidity, and predictability. Its currency becomes the medium of trade. Its markets become the destination of capital. The United States reached this stage after global conflict reshaped the world. The dollar became settlement. Treasuries became collateral. American markets became the deepest pool of capital ever created. At this stage, debt is manageable. Growth feels natural. The system feels permanent. People mistake trust for invincibility. Expansion through leverage. Trust invites leverage. Debt expands faster than productivity. Financial instruments multiply. Complexity increases. This is not corruption. It is efficiency taken too far. Returns begin to rely less on growth and more on structure. Financialization accelerates. Most people believe this is progress. It is not collapse yet. It is stretching. The Roman Empire expanded coinage. The British Empire expanded credit. The United States expanded dollar-denominated debt. Different tools. Same phase. Signal distortion. This is where failure begins quietly. Prices stop reflecting reality. Markets stop signaling risk. Intervention becomes routine. At this stage, policymakers mistake control for stability. Central banks suppress volatility. Media amplifies reassurance. Economists revise models to explain anomalies. The system still functions, but inaccurately. This is where smart capital begins to move. Not away from profit, away from concentration. This is where BlackRock's shift belongs. Capital repositioning. This is the stage most people never see. Money does not flee. It repositions. Long-duration assets decline. Exposure shifts to alternative regions, commodities, infrastructure, and real assets. Not because of fear, because of risk asymmetry. At this stage, insiders stop asking, how much can we make? They ask, where can we still exit? History shows this clearly. British capital left sterling assets before devaluation. Dutch capital moved before the guilder lost dominance. Roman elites accumulated land and hard assets before coin debasement became obvious. The public noticed later. Always later. Social realization. This is the final stage. Confidence breaks after the math has already failed. Currencies weaken. Supply chains fracture. Political conflict intensifies. This is not the beginning of collapse. It is the moment collapse becomes visible. By this stage, capital has already moved. Why people fail TOCIT? Because each stage feels logical inside the moment. Media frames it as adaptation. Politicians frame it as resilience. Economists frame it as transition. No one frames it as end-of-cycle behavior. Because end-of-cycle behavior looks rational until it suddenly isn't. Where we are now, all indicators place the current system between stage 4 and stage 5. Debt exceeds productive growth. Liquidity requires constant intervention. Capital is quietly leaving core exposure. This is not speculation. It is visible in balance sheets, reserve flows, and asset allocation models. BlackRock did not create this reality. It responded to it. Every system has a limit. Every dominant power eventually reaches the point where momentum surpasses understanding. Every anchor of global finance, no matter how deep or broad, eventually strains against its own weight. We are now at that point. The final stage does not arrive with headlines. It does not arrive with alarms. It does not arrive in a way that can be reversed once it becomes visible. It arrives quietly, imperceptibly, like water slowly eroding stone. By the time it is recognized, the shift has already occurred. The structures are already stressed. The opportunities to react are already gone. Most people will miss this phase entirely. They will trust that the system's size, complexity, and reputation are sufficient to guarantee stability. They will believe in the comforting narratives. This time is different. The system will protect us. Central banks will always intervene. These statements are false. They are not lies in the traditional sense. They are delusions, collective illusions that allow unprepared people to sleep while the mechanisms of risk move around them. History has never protected the unprepared. It has never waited for consent. It has never asked permission. Look at past examples. The British Empire. Sterling dominance appeared permanent, unquestionable. Capital flowed outward from London's banks into global colonies with a sense of security. Then, quietly, large segments of capital began to reposition into gold, into foreign assets, into what insiders recognized as safer havens. By the time public panic set in, the pound had already lost real purchasing power, and the markets had already begun pricing in the decline. The general population experienced the consequences, not the strategy. The Roman Empire offers an even starker lesson. Rome's coinage once symbolized authority and stability across the Mediterranean. But in the decades before the empire fractured, elites quietly withdrew wealth from cash and public markets, converting it into land, grain, and durable assets. When inflation accelerated and supply chains faltered, the public had already been left behind. Rome did not fail overnight, it failed in stages. And the stages, each quiet and rational in their own context, made collapse inevitable. History does not repeat, it rhymes. But the sequence remains. The stage's dominance, leverage, signal distortion, repositioning, and final social realization recur in every financial cycle, in every empire, in every dominant global power. And make no mistake, The present system is in the late stage of that sequence. Debt has grown far beyond the productive capacity that once sustained it. Central banks have expanded balance sheets to record levels not as a precaution, but as a necessity. Liquidity flows are maintained through intervention rather than natural market forces. Global reserves are being shifted quietly not because of fear, but because insiders recognize the asymmetry of risk. BlackRock's repositioning of $2.1 trillion is not the cause of instability. It is a symptom, the visible tip of a vast, invisible movement. Capital moves first, public perception moves last. Those who understand this sequence recognize that the shift is structural, not speculative. It is inevitable, not accidental. What collapses first is not the stock market. It is not currencies. It is confidence. Markets may appear stable in the moment, but price signals have already been distorted. Currencies may retain nominal value, but their purchasing power is already compromised. Supply chains may continue to function, but fragility has already been introduced. By the time the public perceives these fractures, the system has already rebalanced around those who recognize the pattern early. Prepared individuals do not panic. They do not chase headlines. They do not rely on reassurance from governments or media. They position according to structural realities, historical analogies, and quantitative flows. Unprepared individuals, by contrast, will react emotionally, attempting to regain stability after it has already shifted. Their losses will not come from malice, but from timing. The time window is finite. It is not defined by a specific date, but by a phase, a period in which positioning still matters. Every day that passes without recognition narrows this window. Every intervention that postpones visible consequences reinforces the illusion of permanence. Every reassurance from the media or political leaders deepens the trap of complacency. The consequences will cascade, but not uniformly. Some sectors will fracture first. Highly leveraged financial instruments, thinly traded markets, and complex derivatives. Currencies that rely on confidence more than fundamentals will destabilize next. Supply chains, especially those stretched across borders and dependent on fragile logistics, will exhibit stress. By this point, repositioned capital will have already secured relative safety. The public, caught in lagging perception, will experience disruption as surprise. This is the predictable mechanism of late-stage systemic transitions. It is neither mystical nor conspiratorial. It is mathematical. It is rational. It is unavoidable. The responsibility falls not on luck or emotion. It falls on awareness, on understanding the sequence, on seeing the structural movement before it becomes public. Those who recognize this, who position and act accordingly, may not be safe, but they will not be entirely blind. Those who fail to recognize it will bear the consequences in full. Comforting narratives are collapsing faster than most realize. The system is too big to fail is false. It is protected by central banks is false. This time is different is false. History has already answered these questions. Size does not prevent stress. Intervention does not prevent structural failure. Confidence does not prevent inevitable adjustment. By the time the signs are visible to the general public, the patterns have already completed their course. The system may continue to operate nominally, but it will operate on terms set by those who recognized the sequence first. The public will be left to interpret consequences, not to influence them. This is the nature of the final stage. Silent, controlled, relentless. It is precise. It is inevitable. It is unforgiving. The only question that remains is whether you understand the pattern, the stages, the sequence. Whether you recognize that the flows, the reserves, and the repositioning are not random. Whether you can perceive structural change before it becomes historical fact. This briefing does not offer comfort. It does not offer solutions. It does not promise safety. It offers knowledge. And knowledge, in moments like this, is the only leverage that exists. History is already answering the question of who will endure. It is already deciding who will react too late. It is already separating those who observe from those who survive only in hindsight. Do not misinterpret its silence as stability. Do not misinterpret its order as safety. Do not misinterpret its calm as permanence. The final stage is approaching. It is quiet. It is structural. It is inevitable. Those who recognize it may still act. Those who do not will experience it. And when the record is reviewed, as it always will be, history will not ask who believed the assurances. History will not ask who relied on institutions or narratives. History will only show who recognized the sequence, who understood the stages, who moved when movement was still possible, and who learned the lesson too late. The sequence is already in motion. The final stage is already shaping outcomes. The shift is already decided. You are no longer early. You are already in the moment. And the question is not whether you will survive. The question is whether you understand the sequence before it decides for you. This is the end of cycle briefing. The window is closing, and history is waiting.